Welcome to the Rich Mind Podcast.
All right, everyone, welcome back. And one thing that I'm always searching for in my life, and I tell my family this all the time, I'm always seeking wisdom. I'm always seeking things to kind of help me get my brain thinking, to get maybe myself out of a little bit of a funk that I've been going through or whatever. I'll be honest, the last 3 or 4 months, they've been a challenge. I won't go into too much detail today on this episode, but at the same time, just know that if you're struggling out there with any facet of your life, whether it's health, wealth, legacy, or anything in between, just know that we are all going through similar challenges. And I raise my hand because I'm in that as well. But when I'm seeking for wisdom, every now and then I get something sent to me. And this actually came from my daughter. She actually sent me a quote that I wanted to share with you today. And I think that from this quote, Greg and I will have a great discussion here on the episode, and hopefully you'll find a ton of value in it. He and I, before we hit record, it's like, yeah, we kind of resonate with this both in our lives. So hopefully this will be a fun dialogue. So let me read this quote, and then we'll get started here on the discussion. So this is a quote, and it says, "A philosopher once asked a group of students to write down their greatest fear. Most said failure. One wrote, success in a life I don't want. The room fell silent. We spend so much of our time trying to win the game, we forget to ask if we even want to play. Sometimes the bravest act is not climbing, but choosing a different ladder altogether." End quote. So that's what I wanted to discuss today. Talking about chasing the game, chasing the ladder of success, quote unquote success, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. I've made that, I don't even want to use the word mistake. I've made that choice early on in my life when I was going up the corporate ladder within the retail chain that I was within, and realized quickly that I was climbing up the wrong ladder. I was sacrificing way too much of my own physical health, my own family, personal time, all the different things. I had some good relationships within that business, like with friends within that company, but outside of those four walls of that store I was in a lot of the hours per week, it really wasn't going real well. So I realized that I wasn't chasing, or I wasn't doing the right things in my life, and I was climbing the wrong ladder. Any thoughts on that quote for you, Greg? As far as I sent that to you and you're like, yeah, we could have a discussion about that. Tell me your thoughts as far as that quote itself.
First off, I want to say I really love the fact that your daughter sends you quotes like this. This is awesome.
Shout out to Adrienne real quick. Shout out to Adrienne if you listen to us, sweetheart. Appreciate it. Yeah, I've got my kids and family really trained. If you see something that like sparks off an interest in you, some kind of wisdom, send it to me, and they did. So yeah, kudos to her.
It just goes to show, kudos to you guys, right, for the leadership and all the, I don't want to say education, but education that you've, poured into them. And if they're picking these things up and literally sending them to you, I mean, that's just a testament to everything, to your family and the way you structured it. So that's the coolest thing I've heard so far on this podcast is my daughter sent me this quote, and it's an awesome quote. And now we're going to hear we're going to talk about it. So yeah, just props to Adrienne right there.
Appreciate that. Yeah, my kids are doing well. They have struggles just like the rest of us. And so what I keep telling them is that knowing or seeing information like this and like recognizing the importance of it as early as they are, they're in their mid-20s, all three of my kids, from 23, I think my son's 27, and I think Adrienne's 25. So yeah, in their 20s, to be able to recognize things like this, to have a discussion about it, to see the importance of it. Yeah, it's super cool. I tell them they're so far ahead of where I was for sure in my 20s, and they're so far ahead of others as well. But yeah, so that's where it's fun even to take something like this and then have a discussion about it. Hopefully we can help somebody else that's out there think through this as well. So, but I appreciate it, man. Yeah, love my kids. They're great.
Of course. So going back to the quote, I can definitely relate to, most said failure of, what's your greatest fear, even as maybe not a child, because I don't think as a child I had fear, because you just don't. But as an adult, when you realize what's out there, what the world can be, and sometimes it kicks you in the teeth a little bit, failure it's real. So I love the fact that the room fell silent when it said success in the life that I don't want. It just goes to the whole regret piece of doing things for other people, being being somebody or jumping into a career because you've been labeled this a salesperson or that kind of person, and that's the only thing that you can really connect yourself with, but it's not true. So I think we'll talk about some limiting beliefs and everything, but this is a strong quote. I love this quote, and this is going to be a good one.
So the fear of failure is something that I think most, if not all of us, can resonate with. We're so ingrained growing up that the only way to succeed is like perfect scores and A pluses or A's or whatever the grades are within our school system, even sports. So I was playing sports growing up. And so it was always about my stats, how many points I scored, what was my batting average in baseball, pitching wise, ERA, strikeouts, just all that stuff. And so it was always striving for perfection, which has led me, I'll speak for myself, which has led me then to fear that idea that if I can't reach excellence, if I can't be the best, then I must be failing. I've struggled with that even with creating the podcast and launching this podcast. I felt like if I didn't strive or if I didn't reach a certain level of success within the podcast, then I must be failing. When in reality, it's taken me a long time to realize that isn't necessarily true. It's the process in the journey that's important. But so going back into this quote again, but what if success or the success that you're chasing after is the wrong thing that you're looking for altogether? So I saw that within my own family as well. So my father and my mother, and I've shared this in the past, but both of them passed at early ages. But I can say clearly that my father, he didn't necessarily go after many things in life outside of, he kept his safe job, he kept his safe 401k, and it was a lot of safety, fear of failure, which then by the time it got to the point where he found out that he was sick and that he was about ready to pass, I know that he wished he would have done more, gone out there to try to achieve more, stretch himself, which has sparked me to be able to do that a little bit more within myself. I've pushed myself further outside my comfort zone. I have so much further to go. That's probably another discussion for another day. But there's so many things to stretch into to try to become more. But then the idea, like I said, to chase a dream, chase somebody else's dream. I see a lot of times. So as I mentioned, my kids are in their mid 20s, but as my kids were getting ready to enter out of high school and go into that college age, I was seeing a lot of their friends that were being, I don't know if persuaded is the right word. They were encouraged to do certain things, go to school, go to get this degree, get that degree, start living a life that may or may not be what they were wanting to do. And so I kind of lived that myself also back when I was in that college years for myself. And what I promised myself to my kids was I wasn't going to tell them what to do. I was going to encourage them to figure it out for themselves. Was it going to be easy? No. Is it going to be challenging? Yes. But I believe that as they get further on in their life, as they get past these 20s and into their 30s, I think they're going to be able to see that having that choice early on and not necessarily chasing after what they were told to go do, hopefully will allow them to, as they get into their 30s and 40s and 50s, and as I'm 50 now, my dad passed when he was 65, and I'm sure he had a little regret. So my hope is that as they get into the 30s, 40s, and 50s, because they've had those choices, they might not have been the perfect choices in the moments, but it will allow them to be better with, be okay with, be happier with the outcomes versus, well, my dad told me I had to go do this, and my dad told me I had to go do that, and or mom, our family, we were, pushing them to do certain things. That was the big takeaway, or one of the biggest things I wanted to bring as far as from that quote itself was the realization that what is it that we want? I ask that question here on this podcast a lot. What is it that we want, or what is it that you want listening to us today? I sit with that question all the time, and then allowing yourself to realize that if it's not the path you're on, having the courage to even recognizing it first, not even doing anything with it, just recognizing it first takes a lot of courage. And when you start to see it, then you're going to start possibly to be able to go down that path of figuring out exactly where it is direction you want to go. That's the encouragement I want to leave with you here today on this episode, is that have the courage and understand that it's okay. it's normal that if you are in an area or in a situation within your life that you're not necessarily happy with, which way are you going to go? Which way are you going to pivot? And giving yourself permission to make those pivots as you go along. That's it's tough, but at the same time, with this discussion, hopefully that'll help some people think through that process a little bit for themselves.
This makes you, again, like a great father, because my dad did the exact same thing with me and my children, or my siblings.
I just want you, can you say that again? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just joking, folks. I appreciate that, man.
Just hit rewind real quick and you'll hear that again.
Just hit rewind. When I'm editing, I'll just keep replaying that over and over and over. No, I appreciate it, man. I really do. So it's being a father is challenging. Those dads out there, right? Kudos to you guys trying to get it done, but I appreciate that.
No, seriously, because I know from speaking from my own experience, my father, he was arguably the breadwinner of our family. He was successful in the international banking world. And not once did he ever say, hey, you should do this, or why don't you look at that? He, in my 20s, went from job to job. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And he always encouraged me. He said, oh, that sounds great. Really dive into it and figure it out. And just wanted to say kudos again to you, because I know I really appreciated that later in life when looking back on it. I was like, oh, my dad never pushed me or never told me you should be in finance or you should not be in finance or whatever the case may be. And it really just allowed me to, like you said, explore and kind of figure things out. So a lot of similarities there. So that's really cool to connect those dots.
Yeah, my dad was the exact opposite. He was always telling me what to do, always, my entire life. He always tried to phrase it like he was suggesting for me to do things. When in reality, he was just telling me that this is what I should go out and do. And so I didn't have the courage to step into that, meaning I didn't have the courage to stick up for myself. Maybe that's probably the better way to put it. For the longest time, till I was in my late 20s, I would say I finally realized that how much control he had over my life, which is another reason why this quote kind of struck me hard as far as thinking this in my own personal life. It took me a long time to realize how much control he was having over my entire life, my family, my own personal success, the company that I was even working with. I always refer back to this retail company. It's because he helped me get this position. It's within the same company he worked for. He worked in a different a different division of the company, but at the same time, he helped me get that job. So, I mean, every part of my life, he had a touch on, or a stamp on. And so when I realized that, I had to make the decisions. I had to find that courage in myself to, what am I going to do now? And I had to move away. I had to completely uproot my family, and we moved a couple of 100 miles away just to get some separation. So I needed to figure out some things for myself. So I swore to myself that, and you're talking about being, father, and I appreciate everything you said, but that's like, I promised myself I wouldn't do that. Now I probably still do sometimes. And my kids, if they're on here, they probably would say, yeah, come on, Dad, you always try to tell us what to do. But I always try to keep it and run it through my mind of how I would have felt or how I did feel back when my father was doing that to me all the time. And that usually gets me to not complete a thought. Like I'll be going down a suggestion, quote unquote, a suggestion, but I'll stop as I get, and I realize that, hey, this is for them to decide. It's not for me to decide. And it's taken me a long time to get that figured out for myself, because that wasn't necessarily modeled for me. But I just don't want as many people as I possibly can, if they're out there chasing the corporate dream or the golden handcuffs or the whatever the term is these days, I don't even know. But the point is if you're not necessarily trying to achieve things for yourself, if you're doing it for the status, if you're doing it for the title on, whatever, whether it's the name tag or whether it's on your door or whatever it is, if it's on your Facebook post or whatever, your profile, if that's what you're chasing, make sure that that's the right game that you want to play, because that's what this all is all about. Life is just simply just a game, and you get to choose which activities you want to participate in. One of the things that hit me over the last day or two, as I mentioned, the last few weeks have been a challenge for myself, for my wife, basically for my entire family. And one of the things I was really trying to sit with myself with, once again, is going back to what that I truly want. And it really hit me the other day that everything that I've got so far, and it's not stuff. I don't have a lot of stuff. The only thing I'm missing is my 69 Camaro. That's it. That's it. My 69 Camaro, red, black stripes, black interior, 4-speed. Yeah, we've had that discussion before. But that's the only thing as far as stuff, that's the only thing that I'm missing. That I need to really, it hit me that I just need to be content with where I'm at this stage of my life, because everything I've ever said that I've ever wanted, which was time freedom, which was a close-knit family, which is, I've got my little red 2-seat convertible. I know that there again, that is stuff, but I've got that, and I've always wanted a car like that. And I was just racing it around the interstate today. It was a lot of fun. People were like, "What is that guy doing?" It's like, shh, don't tell. Anyways, having fun. I just need to be more content with what I have as far as being grateful for what I've accomplished up to this point. And yes, I want to strive to gain more, but I don't need to necessarily beat myself up over what I've already accomplished. That was an idea or a thought that I had just the other day. And that might sound simple. Maybe Greg can tell me what your thoughts are there. But that allowed me then to just kind of relax in that moment, because I was kind of in an anxious moment of thinking, oh my gosh, I need to go do this. I need to accomplish this. And there again, the game of life, my podcast isn't succeeding, or, I need more subscribers, and I need my YouTube channel, this, that, and the other, or whatever it is. I had an anxious moment, and I really just needed to bring it back in and get centered with the idea of just being grateful for what I have, grateful for what I've been able to accomplish, but then continue to strive to move forward, but not anxiously. Any thoughts on that?
Having been anxious or even having anxiety currently, I've definitely been down that road. And I think for me and a lot of other people, it's not only like succeeding, but succeeding quickly. I want that, job quickly, or I want that amount of money quickly. And it just doesn't work like that most of the time, at least, from what I've seen anyway. And that's one thing that I really have to let go in my head of. Things do take time, and that's okay. There's no finish line to when you achieve this goal. Like you said, it's more of the process, and is the process rewarding? Kind of going back to, the success in a life that I don't want. If you're successful in a life that you do want, then all the things and the stuff is going to show up. The other thing I was going to mention too, you mentioned courage like 3 or 4 times there. There is a woman, her name is Bronnie Ware. And if you Google her, she's an author and a songwriter, but she's on a lot of podcasts, and she wrote this book. And one of the chapters, or one of the main things, it's another quote. It said, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And the title of the book, I believe, is The 5 Regrets of the Dying. So she was, I believe, a hospice nurse. So she talked to people as they were passing away. And you have those really heart-to-heart moments. She said people told her things that they never told anybody else because of their situation. And that was the number one thing, or at least the number one that she put in her book. And it just really hit me of what others expect of me. I shouldn't care about that. And it's just, if you want to go deeper into this subject, Bronnie Ware, it's fantastic. She is, she's just full of a wealth of knowledge, and just wanted to throw that in there before I forgot.
That's awesome. So you said she's been interviewed and that kind of thing on different podcasts and that kind of stuff? Because that's probably where I would pick that up.
If you put her in the search bar, you can find her as BRONNIE WARE. So spelled a little differently.
So I've heard about that hospice story, but I didn't recognize the name. So yes, I appreciate you bringing that up, bringing that to the table. Because yes, that is what I'm trying not to do. So Gary Vaynerchuk, if you haven't heard that name, folks, that'd be another person to look for. He lately has been really good. He posted talking about the time that it takes to be quote unquote successful. He made a post. I saw it just the other day, and that's what reminded me about you're talking about it taking time, about how it is going to take time. It takes consistent effort over time is what's going to bring the success. I think that I use that we loosely, but we are stuck in this thing that we believe that it should be faster than it is, when in reality, it's going to take the amount of time that it takes. Sometimes somebody might blow up a little faster than others. So you just assume that it should be that way for yourself. But I love the idea of not necessarily going down or attaching yourself to somebody else's expectations. I love that as well. Man, you just saying that, I mean, it just almost gave me chills because that's exactly how it was literally my entire life up until 10, 15 years ago. Well, it's just I've always done that. I've given away my ability to make decisions or my ability to go after what I wanted. I've always given that to somebody else, whether it was my dad or other people. Even when I was working, right, I was always trying to do things for my supervisor or for whatever. I was never really ever wanting to do things for myself. And so when I've started to bring that back in house and start realizing the things that I wanted, like I've told you, the number one thing I wanted was time freedom. I wanted time freedom. I don't have a problem working. I just want to be able to choose when I work and choose what I want to work on. To me, that's two different things. And so when I was in those retail days, I could not wait to get my time freedom. So now that I have that time freedom, why am I not grateful? I should be like doing the jig, doing the dance. I should be like dancing every day. But the challenge I have then is I'm always there again, I'm putting expectations on myself that other people that I'm not as successful as I should be. So the biggest project right now I've got going on, once again, is this podcast. And so I'm trying to get it to ever increase in popularity, or I'm trying to figure out the next topic to talk about, which stories to share, what's the next pivot, when in reality. So Greg, maybe you tell me, this is just almost like a question to you, and you could tell me because you're part of the podcast, but you've been an outside observer as well. Is it just staying with the process, staying with the game long enough? Number one, I do want to get better. I don't want to deliver, garbage content. I want to continue to get better at the quality. Quantity, I guess, will take care of itself if you stay disciplined enough to keep going. But do you believe that that's really the secret? If you enjoy doing it, which I do, I love doing this. Yeah, we're in the middle of the day on a Sunday recording this episode today. And it's like, this is great. I love it. It's fun. But you think that's the game? We talk about the game, winning the wrong game. Do you think that's the game, is just sticking with it long enough to see it through, even though the challenges come and the anxious moments come? Any thoughts on that?
I think if you combine those two, it's staying consistent with doing something that you really love. Because that's what you said. I love this podcast. I love my time freedom. So those two are already taken care of. Now it's for you. It's just consistency, and consistency is going to knock it out, and it's going to essentially attract the right audience. You're not seeking the right audience. We're not putting ads saying, oh, we want this person to listen to us. People are just going to listen to us because they're attracted to what we're saying. And I think it's exactly what you said. It's consistency and really doing what you love, or at least like, not hate. You know what I mean? Because there's tons of people, and I was this person probably a few times in my career where I woke up and I was like, oh, I got to go to work. I don't enjoy what I do. What else? Just my mind was racing of what else can I do, and what are my options? And so it's tough when you're in that hamster wheel. So I think it's consistency and really enjoying what you do. If you combine those two, you're going to win your own game.
Appreciate that. I just threw that on you, so I appreciate you coming back with that, because that helps. So folks, if you're out there in a similar situation, so just a little bit of context as far as kind of the situation I found myself in. I was 35-ish, mid 30s, in that retail position, working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, young family, barely making ends meet. I mean, they weren't paying me very well, struggling, miserable, depression, just bad. I was just in a bad place, living life for someone else versus myself. So a few of the things that I did that I just wanted to leave you with some steps that you can, when you shut this episode off, some things you might be able to do for yourself. First thing I did is I focused on my personal development. When I discovered Jim Rohn, Earl Nightingale, I started to plug those guys into my brain. It rewired how I thought about life. Meaning it was starting. So there again, this wisdom that I was seeking, I was finding it from other sources. The good news is these days, these sources are like everywhere. You can go on YouTube, you can search for podcasts, wisdom is like, it's very abundant, which is great. It's also a little bit overwhelming, but it's great because you can easily find what you're looking for. I would start there. Find a voice of value and just plug in whatever resonates with you. The voices that resonated with me might not for you, but start there. Next thing, get your finances in order. We talk about health, wealth, and legacy here on the podcast. Get a to the penny what your monthly expenses are. Know to the penny. And I'm talking about if you go out to eat, I'm talking about the gas. I mean, I say to the penny. It just needs to be very accurate what your monthly expenses are. That was the second step that I did when I realized that I had to get out of my W-2 job. This time freedom, I needed it very badly. I figured out what my monthly expenditures were. Third thing that I did is I circled a date on the calendar. And I think it was about 6 months out from that moment when I made the decision that I was going to leave. And then I went to work and I figured out what the next step was going to be. I didn't know what it was going to be when I circled that date, but as I got closer, it brought in some clarity of what I needed to do. Now, I went from job to job. I didn't leave the W-2 world altogether, but what it did is it opened up, I saw an opportunity to go from this retail job to more of a sales position that gave me back my time freedom. It was somebody that I knew that I actually just reached out and said, "Hey, do you have anything available?" I knew what he kind of did. I knew kind of what his schedule was. I was like, I'll start at the bottom. I don't care. Because at that point I realized what my monthly number was. I knew what I had to make. So I knew that I could take a step backwards in pay because it was a sales position, like I said. So it was sales plus commission. So I took a little bit less in pay, but I got my time back. And when I got my time back, that's when I went to work. I started to go to work on, I launched my first business, the Your Focused Vision business. And I've talked about YouTube many, many years ago when YouTube was just getting started. I wish I would have kept going back in the day. But anyways, I was able to do those things for myself because I had my time back. I started to invest a little bit in real estate, some single family homes. I started to create some passive income. My wife and I have started some different ventures as well. Network marketing was another avenue we went down in several different businesses. But the point is, so those were the steps that I took. Number one, I made the decision I was going to leave. I came up with the number that I was making per month. I knew exactly what my monthly number was. And then I picked the date of what I was going to leave. And I stuck to it. I really did. And it worked out to the point where it's like within just a few days of that circled date is when I turned in my notice and I left. And I never looked back. And that's what I want to encourage you here today. If you find yourself in that spot where you know deep down that you can't do it anymore. It's like, this is it. I can't do it. I've been there. I'm raising my hand. I've been there. I've done that. And hopefully if you just rewind what I just shared a few minutes ago, those would just be some simple basic steps to get you started. They helped me. And I've done this now several times. So when I left that sales job to come into the entrepreneurial space, I did the same thing. And so it just allowed me to get some clarity of exactly where I was headed, kept me a little bit more certain as far as what I needed to do on a daily basis. But that's been the process that I've done now multiple times. And hopefully that will be valuable for you if you find yourself in that same situation. How about for yourself, Greg?
I'll add to that and say it always comes back to on this podcast, self-awareness, but also acceptance. That's one thing that I've been really diving into lately on my own personal development journey is just acceptance. And acceptance doesn't mean that you're giving up. It just means this is where I'm at. This is my starting point. Where am I going from here? What's my path? Like we're talking about, what lane do I want to take in life that's going to be successful for me? It could be the money lane. It could be the family lane. It could be the time freedom lane. It could be a little bit of each or combinations of, but like you said, get clarity on what you really want. And yeah, so it just goes back to acceptance, and acceptance has been really powerful for me in the last month or so. And sometimes you realize you are where you literally are in life where you think you should be, but you're not there quite yet. Like the reality kicks in sometimes of, oh, I thought I was here up on this ladder, but now I'm maybe two rungs down. Now, am I on the right ladder? What am I doing? Exactly what we're talking about today. So this ties in well with kind of what's going on in my life in the last couple of months here.
Life's a challenge, folks, and we're all dealing with it. That's one thing I've discovered as I've followed different gurus, quote unquote gurus, folks that, supposedly are all this big success, have all these followers, making all this money. And you start rubbing elbows with some of them or get in some rooms with them sometimes. And you realize that their life is just as messed up as mine, sometimes even more, because they've got problems that are 10 times the size of mine. And it feels like my problems are huge, because they're mine. Same thing with Greg. Greg's, I'm sure, feels like his problems are gigantic. But that's where sometimes even having that person to bounce ideas off of, as Greg has become for me. You just having a little brainstorming mastermind session earlier this week, and we were bouncing ideas off of each other. I can't encourage that enough for you too, folks, is to find somebody that you can trust, that you can share some deep things with, and get some feedback, because that might also help you open up some blind spots. You might not even realize that you're stuck on a certain ladder or in the hamster wheel of life in reality. And if you just start to let go, like you said, accept where you are to begin moving forward. Sometimes that, it feels like it's a step backwards, when in reality, it's going to springboard you forward. That's been my experience moving forward, which kind of leads us into the next episode, which it goes into another quote that I want to talk about. And it's actually a Steve Jobs quote, and I'm not going to read it off to you now. I'll read it off in the next episode, but it goes back to a speech that he gave to a college graduation class. I think it was at Harvard, if I'm not mistaken. But he talked about how it's difficult, or it's almost impossible, to connect the dots moving forward. It's like we have the vision of where we're headed, but it's impossible to connect all the dots it's going to take to move forward. But it's easy, or it's easier to do it looking backwards. And that kind of goes along with what we've discussed here today. I talked to you, or I mentioned about that little bit of a game plan that you could set up for yourself. Like I told you, you pick that date. You're not going to know all the steps required to get to that date. But I promise you that if you just keep stepping forward, stepping in with faith, and realizing that it's going to happen. If you're determined, if you've made the dedicated decision that you're going to step forward into that, the ideas, the opportunities, they'll come to pass. That's been my experience anyways. And so that's what I hope for you, definitely moving forward. So Greg, I want to leave it with you one more last time. Is there anything else you want to leave the folks with here as we wrap this one up today?
Just want to say, doing these steps is sometimes challenging and hard. Being, part of the quote is they use the word brave, and we mentioned courage a lot. So being self-aware, accepting where you are, and then also making that decision to, hey, I'm going to pivot my life. I'm on the wrong ladder. There's a lot of fear in that, going back to that quote. But like you said, if you take that step and you take the next step and then the next step, you're going to thank yourself in the future.
And we thank you being with us here today. Go out there, have a fantastic day. Reach out to us, info@richmind.co. Head over to richmind.co and grab all the free resources we have available for you there as well. We appreciate your time and attention. I don't think I want to add any more to that, Greg. That was a mic drop moment there. That was fantastic. So, folks, as I mentioned, have a great day. We look forward to coming back with the next discussion about this next quote from Steve Jobs in the next episode. Have a fantastic day. We'll talk soon. Bye now.
Thank you for joining us today on the Rich Mind Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like and share it with someone you know. Also, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite platform and never miss an episode. One last thing, don't ever forget that your mind is the first place where wealth is created. Keep dreaming big, take action, and together, let's build wealth, a legacy, and a life we love.